Do you
There you
see
go.
it?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live stream here on the Bow Wow Bill. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on X. If you guys aren't subscribed over at YouTube, please consider doing so. I'm with Bethany Preud'homme. Is that how you say your last name?
That's how I say it. It's not correct, but that's how I say it.
What's
If you want to hear
correct?
it, you have to ask my husband. I
Okay.
butcher it all the time.
Yeah, I I can't speak French. I have a lot of French friends, and literally, like, I'm pretty good at repeating back when somebody says a different language to me, right? But French, like, I've done it like 10 times where I don't get it right, and they have to like, they're like Prue, do, whole, or I don't even know. So I'm with Bethany. How are you, Bethany?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Bethany, I heard about you when I did a live stream with Sergio,
Okay.
and he had great things to say about you, and we talked about ring sports, and I want to get into that with you a little bit today, and sporting dogs, and basically just talk about, what got you working with dogs, and and your various observations as a professional as well. And when I was down in Costa Rica recently, you and I chatted about a dog that you're watching right now. You're not at home, correct?
I'm not at home. I'm in Oregon, dog sitting
Where
and training.
where is home for you?
Riverside, California.
Okay, Riverside, California. All right. And do you want to give everybody a quick introduction? I'm going to share this on my personal Facebook page, and while I do that, do you want to tell everybody who you are? And you said Riverside, California, where you're from, and what you're all about. Just quick intro.
Sure. So I got into dogs. I grew up with dogs. Growing up, we always had small dogs. We had two beagles and a Pomeranian. I rescued my first dog driving home from work one night when I was like 16. And then I just found a way to always bring home dogs. Luckily, most of the time I found their owners. My parents got stuck with a few of them. And then that same 2006-ish, I got my first personal dog. She got dumped out of a car. They just pulled over, dropped her off, drove off. A friend's parent called me because they knew that I was into dogs. I could tell that she had some pit in her and she was all black. And I said, this dog's not going to do well in the shelter. I said, I'll find a spot for her. Easiest puppy in the world. I think she had one potty accident, never chewed a shoe, just was kind of one of those dogs that just kind of got it. You didn't really have to do anything. And I told my parents, I said, I'll get a job. I'll pay for everything. I said, I'll take her to obedience school. I said, just, I've always wanted a big dog, and she had big paws, and she was just really sweet. So luckily my parents also love dogs, and they said yes. So that was my first obedience class. And it was kind of, it was kind of old school, but also modern at the time. It was choke chain and treats, and everybody changed directions and this and that. And, it was fine. The dog didn't really need training, just to kind of go through. You take a class because you get a dog, kind of a thing. I didn't really get into training until I was in college, and I took her with me. And she had always been super friendly with other dogs. One day she wasn't, and that's how I got into it. I was like, oh man, how did this happen? She's never had an issue.
Hmm.
And then I kind of started really, as I got into it, I saw the small signs that a lot of times when people say they're fine, but they're not really fine. And then
Right.
trying to find a trainer that I liked, I couldn't, there wasn't really balanced training when I got into it. It was, you know, harsh methods, or it was just throw food at the dog. There wasn't a happy balance, and I wasn't comfortable with just the harsh training, and just the purely positive that was around at the time was not effective either. And so that's when I kind of started doing my own research. And through that research is how I kind of found dog sports. I didn't really do anything with her besides just some enrichment stuff. But that's how I got into French ring and all kinds of stuff. And that's when I got my first Malinois. And then I went down the rabbit hole.
You went from 0 to 60 really quick in the dog world by getting the Mal,
Yep.
What was your first dog's name?
Sadie.
Oh, Sadie. I used to have a Roddy named Sadie.
Yeah, we
When I
can't
was
talk about her too much because I'll start crying. She passed
yeah,
away at 14 and a half, but it's been 5 years, but still tough.
yeah. It sounds like she was your heart dog.
Yeah.
We have certain dogs that, I mean, I love them. I love all dogs that I've had, but there's my cedar boy, who's my heart dog. I had Timber, who was all my dogs are named after trees. I don't know
Oh, there you
why,
go.
but right now I have I have Maple, Willow, Yaya, Sequoia. I call her Yaya, Alder, Ash, and Pecan. So, and I have all little dogs right now. I was raised with beagles as well. What's your opinion on beagles?
My parents didn't do it right. They got litter mates. They didn't socialize them, so they had, they would fight like crazy. I mean, their ears were almost always bleeding. They'd make up just like litter mates do. Um, they didn't really take them out for walks until, 10 o'clock when nobody's out because they weren't trained. They barked because they were bored, because, of course, that's what beagles do. So they ended up getting their vocal cords cut so that way the neighbors wouldn't complain. I mean, it was one thing wrong after another looking back. I mean, my parents didn't really know any better, but I'll never make those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the reason I ask is like there's a lot of dog trainers just hate beagles.
No, you
uh,
just have to respect them for who they are. It's a nose with a dog attached.
yeah, they're very independent mindset, and I love beagles. I absolutely
Mhm.
love them. I think that they're cute as heck, and the beagle man from France,
Mhm.
Jerome. He's like, I'm gonna bring you one of my beagles and give it, and I'm like, dude, my wife will leave me and she will kill me first,
It's
and
it's
you
it's
know
one of those breeds that I think, I mean, there's so many different breeds out there that have different characteristics, and a lot of them we've bred so far away from their original purpose, they really don't have those. But the ones that do need to be respected. And I wouldn't mind if I lived in the country and for fun we'd go chase rabbits. That'd be great. I'd get a beagle. But if I'm not going to be able to satisfy those needs, it's not fair.
yeah, and I think that people forget that, right? And I tell people like, look, well, first off, the dog reaches into every corner of the human existence, right? That's why, like, I have clients, and I've been on a number of TV shows with some of these celebrities, and it's so cool that I have these experiences because of this unique attribute that these dogs have. Is like we have them from the top of the human experience with the affluent all the way down to homeless people have dogs. Like
Hmm.
there's every single station in the human life, dogs are present, right? And I think that such a cool thing. But what we also need to realize is in the last 100, 200 years, even in the last 20 years, like I was looking at dogs, the population of dogs, and it used to be 60 million. Now we're I think we're at like 100 million dogs just in America alone,
Hmm.
if
Well, look,
not
the human
more.
population as well.
Right, but the role of the dog, right? I mean, it has changed dramatically, and it's been argued that we wouldn't be where we are as a human civilization without the help of our canine friends to help take us from a nomadic or a tribal kind of like always moving and hunting and to a horticultural pastoral existence where we can raise livestock, we can have farms, we have dogs to guard, we have dogs to help us with that livestock, and all the way up to our present day. And every channel of these dogs, even those Pomeranians and the Danes and all these dogs that were more of like a showy dog, right? That showed that we started to get life was getting better, and that we could have dogs
Hmm.
that weren't
A status
necessarily
symbol.
right, a status symbol instead of a working dog with a job. And even with the last the last few years with the way that we approach how we engage with these dogs, um, it's very interesting to me, the evolution of where we're at today and how we got there, because I started out as a dog trainer purely positive,
Mhm.
until, like you said, it wasn't effective. And not only that, but I remember saying to myself, man, this should work. This should be working. Like, this is what I've learned. And right. But you get these dogs that are going to show you the holes in your program. And it's something that we have to see what's in front of us, and we have to adjust accordingly. Um,
And I
and
think
that's
it does work, but the definition is increasing the likelihood of a behavior to occur in the future. And when you're trying to stop behavior, that's not, I mean, you can reward alternate behaviors, but you're not addressing that behavior.
right, especially when behavior becomes problematic. And let's talk about Sadie, right? Because then I like what you said, like what's going on? Like, she's never done this before, right?
Yep.
But we might not have been able to read the animal and the nuances, right, of this dog being uncomfortable, and us just kind of either shrugging it away or not even having the eyes to see that. So can you
Yeah, and
explain a little bit more?
Hers wasn't based in fear. She would walk up. I didn't know any better, so of course you socialize your dog at the dog park and the dog beach, things like that. And she would walk up and she'd posture.
Okay.
and she would if they didn't give her any crap, she'd walk away. And she'd walk up the next dog and posture. All she wanted to do was play ball. Ball was her life.
Okay.
If you were throwing the ball for her, she wouldn't go approach dogs. She wanted to go play ball. And she lived with a Chihuahua Dachshund mix. She grew up with the Beagles and the Pomeranians. She was always raised with small dogs, and the dog that she attacked was also a small dog. She lived with cats. She was scared of my cat. She had a very respectful interaction with them. If they wanted the dog bed, she'd get up and walk away. There was no issues with cats. And when the issue happened, it was a coworker that came. We were playing soccer at a park. I had my dog. And she said, oh, I think I'm gonna bring my dog. It's a little Maltese. And I said, yeah, no problem. Again, this is like a 65 pit shepherd mix. I was like, yeah, she's great with dogs. It's not an issue. And she brought her dog up, and my dog was tethered. I was playing soccer. She brought the dog up and just grabbed the dog. Dog needed stitches and drains and all kinds of fun stuff.
Goodness. Okay.
And so it was very out of, like, again, what? I obviously wouldn't have let her go say hi to the dog if I thought it was going to be an issue. And so I still don't, because I wasn't even really sniffing. It was just as soon as the dog was there, and I was far away, so I didn't see the whole thing. But it was definitely surprising, and it was I can't have that happen again. And it never did. I managed, I learned, I did my research. We stopped going to the dog park. We still went to the dog beach because I knew if I played ball with her, she wouldn't go after it. We did end up doing some corrections with e-collar at higher levels to stop it. I found a trainer that did like a bunch of like pack walks and group things that we started doing, like group obedience around dogs. And just she didn't have to like other dogs. She just needed to be neutral. And I did find somebody that, I had access to dogs to be able to socialize her in a way that was appropriate for her. And even then, I just had to be careful how I did my intros. And if she started posture, I'd tell her knock it off, and that was it. I introduced her to other cats as an adult. She was, I couldn't really give her, she would take advantage. If I wasn't paying attention and I gave her the opportunity, I think you could have a problem. But she was she was the kind of dog you go, Sadie, and she'd go, sorry, and she'd roll over on her back.
Yeah.
So but again, when she was in drive and she was posturing, again, that same verbal would not interrupt it. And I think that was a little bit of that pity side coming out.
Yeah. Once they're at like a 7 or 8, you want to get them at a 4 or 5 before they get up to that level. Otherwise, we're
don't let them escalate.
Yep. Yeah, and then just tethered is one thing. Being away from you, frustration.
Yeah,
right?
It's the perfect storm. I didn't
totally.
that's but again, that's what got me into it. So luckily the dog was okay and everything. But sometimes bad things create new avenues, and that's how I got into it. If that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be a trainer. I knew I wanted to do something with dogs because when I was in college, I skipped a lot of school to go hiking with my dog. And I was like, I need something. I need to be able to make a living through dogs. I didn't want to be a vet. I didn't want to be on the side of, putting dogs down and dealing with dogs when they're hurt and neglected and injured. I couldn't do that. And I started looking like, oh, it's like, geez, dog walkers like in San Francisco, you could make money doing that. And then Cesar Millan kind of came out and that kind of got popular. And I was like, I think I could do this. And my parents were like, absolutely not, stay in school, you know. And I was like, I want to give it a try. And it worked out. So.
Okay. Yep. And I remember Cesar was a pretty big inspiration for me too. And I was trying to think, man, can you think of anybody else in the dog world that's as famous as Cesar today?
I mean, so when that, like those early days, you had Victoria Stilwell and Cesar Millan. Those were like the TV. I mean, there wasn't, at least I wasn't aware of anybody doing podcasts or videos. I mean, it wasn't really available. Like those were your options, was Cesar Millan or Victoria Stillwell. And looking back, it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
they were very different.
And the world is different now. I mean, we're doing a live stream right now, and people, you know, the vast majority of the people watch this after the fact, and some of them watch them on a podcast or just listen to this. And if you guys are watching this and you get enjoyment, consider supporting me over on Patreon. I'll put a link to my Patreon page down below. I hate doing the self-promotion, but it helps me, you guys, and for
you have to.
Yep. it is what it is. I mean, I have, and you know what, I just have a new case coming to me where I'll be taking, and I'm going to have a couple helpers that are going to videotape me with this new dog that I'll be getting. And I fly all over the country. I train dogs, and my clients that I target are more affluent, and so there's a whole way to market to these people, where, you know, it's a lot less calorie for the dollar, but it's also, you have to tread carefully when you're talking to clients that are professionals. You want to be that professional, and so if I can help you attract some of these clients, and it'd be my pleasure. And that's more on the Patreon side. If you guys are interested, there's a link in the comments down below. So when your Sadie was a bad girl and she attacked the Maltese, and then you're like, what the heck is going on? And so then you started to look around, and you know what, Bethany, is that I've done almost 200 of these talks. And you know how many people got into the dog world because of the necessity that they required, because they have a dog that's problematic that they love, right? And they go to a positive only trainer or whoever, and they're like, no, you need to euthanize this dog. And they're like, dude, I love my dog. I'll do whatever it takes, you know, to either fix the situation or learn how to manage this. And then they go to a yank and crank, and they're like, ethically, I can't do this, right? And so then they start to dive deep down the rabbit hole, as you're saying, and start to understand the how they got into the situation, start making changes, and they lo and behold, they recognize a void. My favorite beard, like, thanks, Michael. They recognize a void in the industry, and they step up to fill it, right? And it sounds kind of like you did the same thing of like, okay, cool, this is something. Did you know when there was a time that you were like, you know what, I can help people doing this? Is there
so
a time
I didn't really, I mean, I wanted to be a trainer, but it wasn't, I was still kind of doing it for myself. So right. I was in, and I still am in the I want to learn everything I can phase. And so when I was like, okay, I want to learn how to do this because I want to basically be able to train my own dog, I went through a program called Animal Behavior College. Don't recommend
ABC.
it, but it did have but it did have an internship attached to it.
Okay.
And so I was able to train with somebody for a couple weeks. That's all was included. But when I came back up, I lived in San Luis Obispo at the time. And when I went back up to the area, I reached out to the Humane Society, and I asked who their trainer was. And so I got in contact with him, and Ken Brown, super nice guy. He was the trainer for the shelter. He did all the evals and stuff, and then he also did some personal protection, tracking kind of stuff on the side. And I was like, cool. So he let me intern with him. So I worked with him for about 2 years. I would go to him to the shelter to help him train dogs. I'd follow him to his lessons. I handled his dogs protection stuff, and then I got my Malinois. And at the time, there wasn't really, I don't think they're still up there. There's no French ring, Monte ring, there's nothing like that up there. And when I got my dog, I told the breeder, I said, I want my limitations to be the dog's limitations. I said, I don't know what direction we're going to go into. I said, but I want a dog that whatever I want to do, the dog can do it. Looking back, I mean, it was way too much dog for me.
Yeah.
I should not have owned that dog, and I should not have been given that dog. That was a high caliber dog. But I mean, I played ring 3 with the dog. I did what I needed to do for that dog. I really stepped up. But as a young 20-year-old, there was way too much dog for me. But I'm kind of Malinois crazy too, so it was fine. But so for the first year of that dog's life, I worked with Ken. I just did obedience. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do stuff. And so during the internship, and then what really got me into the professional side of it was my roommate got married on me. So now I had the 2 dogs, one being a Malinois, and he did not like people. So trying to find a place to rent. I needed a roommate up there. I said, it's not gonna be possible. So I ended up moving back down to Orange County. And while I was living up there, the guy that I was working with, Ken, he's like, hey, I saw there's a kennel down there that's hiring. You should go, apply for it. And I got hired on the spot. So I worked at that kennel, Crossroads Pet Resort with Dan. I worked there for, 3 years or so before I opened my own business. So I think that's a big part that people are missing now, new trainers, is the long internships, the working for somebody else. Just now people just start their own business. And I think that's why the business or the industry is kind of where it is right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trainers out there that shouldn't be trainers.
Say that again. I wrote down my limitations what were you saying about my limitations? Say that.
I wanted my limitations to be the dog's limitations.
What do you mean by that?
I didn't want a dog that would be holding me back. So I wanted a dog that had the drive and motivation. If I wanted to go do search and rescue, could go do search and rescue. If I wanted to go do protection sports, could go do protection sports. If I wanted to hike from Canada to Mexico, he could do that with me, and he did. So I wanted a well-rounded, resilient dog. That was super important. I knew I was going to make mistakes. I wanted a dog that could handle my mistakes and help me work through them, not just go, well, sorry, you messed up, now I'm done.
Yep, love it. Hey, Michael says that he loves the name PhDogs. I love that too.
No, thanks.
And then we have hi Bill and Bethany. Just heard both of you in the past couple of weeks. Looking forward to watching and learning more. Fantastic. Welcome, Kingdom Canine Family, Dogs and More, and is watching from the YouTube channel. And putting in the work and doing this apprenticeship, picking up poop, cleaning out kennels, dealing with a lot of getting your hands on a lot of dogs is definitely something that's missing. Apprenticeships, right? I have people that shadow me, and a lot of times too, I'm like, let's get over here and let's clean up my barn. Let's get out here and instructing them, no, don't take this dog. No, don't take this case because you're not ready for this. Like literally, we're in a industry that will bite you in the butt if you have too much ego. And one thing you said earlier too, Bethany, is that you're still in the learning phase, right? And I am too. That's one of the reasons why I do these live streams, is to talk to people like you, so that others may glean some pearls of wisdom from the conversation we have. But first and foremost, I'm talking to you and other trainers so I can learn myself. And always be in that learning phase. There's no finish line here, folks, where you know it all and you got it. When you think you do, then you're dead in the water, and you're going to get a dog that's going to show you all the holes in your program that you have. So I like what you said there about, still wanting to learn phase, and that you're still in that.
Yeah. And I think a big thing with all trainers, but especially new trainers, is you already know what you know. You need to listen so you can learn more. And a lot of times, especially like when you go to clubs, it's the new people that are talking the most. It's
Yeah.
the experienced people who are the most knowledgeable. Those are the ones that are quiet. Those are the ones that you need to be going and picking their brains about things. It's usually the loud people that know the least. In general, you get some people that are just very loud personalities, but so that's something that you need to be aware of and careful of when you're getting into dog sports and dog training and things.
Yeah, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we need to listen twice as much as we talk. And one thing that I learned when I started out as that Dunning-Kruger effect. Yep, there is that. There is the thinking that you're all that until you realize that you're not. One thing I realized when I started to do this and was in the positive only phase is like, I started looking at other trainers. I would go to these conferences, especially the ICP conference back in like 2010, 2009, I think was my first one. And there were people there that brought their dogs, and I was astonished by how well these dogs behaved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let the dogs kind of lead my path of learning. And I would watch these dogs perform, and I just remember my mind being blown. When I was, to go way back, when I was a young kid, I was attacked by a dog. A lot of people don't know this, but I was out and I was waiting for my bus at 8 years old. And I'll always remember it. It's seared into my memory at 48 now, 40 years later. And do you know how when it's frozen, it was in Boise, Idaho, it was a winter day, and it was frozen puddles, and I was sitting there popping the bubbles in the puddle with my feet. Right. Oh, look, there's and so I just was kind of spacing off, popping bubbles, and next thing I know, I was on the ground with a German Shepherd on top of me. And he didn't hurt me. I know that now that I know dogs, it was more of, I kind of wandered into a territory maybe that I shouldn't have been, and my attention wasn't. My goodness, he's automatic. My attention wasn't there, and he knocked me down, and he made a lot of noise, and it scared the crap out of me. And I remember walking home crying my eyes out, and then going and tell my mom I got attacked by a dog, and they went to the neighbor's house and talked to them, and this was an old retired police dog, and they wanted to introduce me in a way that this dog, to tell me that this dog wasn't anything to be afraid of, and that they were very sorry. And then they started showing me the commands that this dog knew, and that it was trained. And I just remember as a kid, I mean, I was still freaked out, but I remember watching this dog in awe and just be like, wow, that is pretty cool. And I kind of went back there when I started to get frustrated with these dogs that weren't performing in the way that I thought they would. And so that's where I got in the mindset of like, let the dog kind of lead your path here. Let the people that are working with dogs, their dogs should show you that their philosophy is legit and that they know what they're doing. And so that's what happened with me. Now with Dan was the first guy in the Humane Society.
No, that was Ken.
Ken. So when Ken had his Malinois, do you remember the first time you met this dog, and what was it that gave you the bug?
He didn't have a Malinois. He had Rottweilers and Dobermans, and
Okay.
he was kind of an off-breed guy. He was from the Virgin Isles. He was quite the character, but he taught me. He was patient. He would let me go to do all the things with him. He would explain the why, and even if it wasn't scientifically why, it was he still could explain himself. which I liked because I'm a big why person. I want to know, you do something to go, oh, why is that doing that? Or what are you doing and how are you doing and what are you trying to get out of it? And I want to know, again, I like to learn. So I always like to know the why and the how. So that way, maybe one day I'll use it. So he had off breeds. He did have one like German Shepherd Malinois, but he wasn't like a Malinois guy. He was more of a Roddy Doberman guy. I think Dobermans were his favorite.
I don't know why I think it's because your hands are there. I don't know why. Do you see it? Yeah. If
Here,
you do
I'll move my hands.
stuff like this, I don't know if it will do. Look at.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to shut it off, but
I'm not tech savvy.
I know. And so, but he did the tracking and bite work, right? With these dogs. Okay. I mistakenly thought that was with the Malinois, but so tell me about your ventures into Mal. So, I mean, a couple things. What did you think when you saw the tracking and the biting with Ken first?
I thought it was cool. I wasn't like tracking is cool, but it's not my like, wow, I love tracking kind of, it was cool, but it didn't light a fire under me. I'm not a huge tracking person. The bite work again was cool. But again, when I was kind of doing my research and stuff, I was like, I like the sport stuff. Like I like how it's a combination. It's I liked the sport stuff. So when I moved back down, I reached out to my breeder, and I said, what kind of dog sports are down here? And she said, well, a lot of people have, it was Debbie Skinner was the breeder. She recommended me to Extreme Ring Dogs, French Ring Club, because they had several dogs from her lines. So she said, they'll know how to handle him and you'll be in good hands. And I was in that club for years and titled he played at ring 3. I had to pull him due to an injury, but it was I got when I needed out of that club, and it was a very good learning experience. It was a menagerie of people and a lot of very interesting characters, but I didn't have money to pay club fees and things, so I would help walk dogs. I would go scoop poop out of his kennel after work. I mean, I drove an hour each way to club. I mean, I was hungry for it, so I put in the work. I did everything that I needed to do to be able to do it, and I'm thankful that the club was patient in teaching with me.
Yeah, it's a commitment, man. It's definitely a commitment, and people don't realize that when they get these high maintenance dogs and then they want to do the sport. I mean, you're essentially trading your life in a lot of ways, the time that's needed to dedicate to it, but also the travel and the expenses. And so tell me about how you acquired this Malinois and why did you choose the Malinois?
So again, I didn't know what I was going to do in terms of dog sports. I would have loved, I mean, when I started, I loved Dobermans. I loved the look of them, especially because that's what Ken was dealing with. I loved a good German Shepherd, but trying to find one in my research that was healthy and could do the work seemed like was difficult. So that's how I kind of got steered into Malinois. And I have no regrets. I love Malinois now. Yeah, and it was a good choice.
And then you went and just found a Malinois breeder, or did you?
No, I did research, and Debbie was down in Southern California and had some litters coming up. So talked to her, went down there, and I was supposed to get one. She had 2 litters that were fairly, maybe like a week apart. And I was supposed to get one from the first litter, but she was supposed to be shipping them out. And so she said she would prefer to send the older ones versus the younger ones. And she asked if I would be okay with taking one from the second litter. And I said, well, what's the difference between the 2? And, it's the same sire and just different dam, but the lines were basically the same. I said, okay, that's fine. And she said, well, I think this one would be good for you. And it was a red collar puppy. She goes, but this one and this one would also be good for you. And again, I didn't know what I was looking for. But I sat down with the puppies and I ended up picking the green collar boy because he was the most handler focused. He would go wander off and then he'd come back and say hi. And he'd go wander off and he'd come back and say hi. And so I figured if it's obviously easier to train a dog that wants to be with you. So I thought that pack drive would be helpful. And so I picked a little green collar boy.
Beautiful. I love it. Yep. The little codependence, especially with these working dogs, where they're looking for the guidance. There's so many dogs that could be very independent, right? And so those don't lend themselves necessarily to, but you don't want them too dependent too, or too codependent as well. So there's a happy middle there.
Yeah, they need to be confident enough to go off and work alone versus looking for help all the time.
Yep. Or getting overwhelmed by the work that is being asked of them, right? And then retreating back to you for safety, right? So
Yep.
we have a question here. I'd like to get into tracking with my GSD. Do you have any recommendations to get started? Do you have any recommendations, Bethany, to get started? She's not really a tracking gal.
I think Sarah Pirelli with Canemo has a tracking course.
Yes. Cameron Ford too is a scent guy. Patrick, Pat Knowles from back east. It depends on where you're located too. I mean, IGP has a tracking aspect of their sport. So, and French Ring doesn't have.
French Ring doesn't have. The only discrimination is the unseen retrieve, where there's socks and they have to find your sock that you dropped. But that's the only scent discrimination that there is. But again, whenever I'm looking at, okay, who do I want to learn from, I look at who's doing well in it, because I'm sure you can find lots of online tracking courses, but who's actually doing well in what you want to do. So like if you want to do IGP, who has curriculum online or available that does well in IGP. If you're looking to do detection, who's doing well in that? Don't just find somebody who's doing well and producing results, because I think that's very important.
Dick Stahl, yeah, Dick Stahl is another one. Scandinavian Working Dog Institute, or Dick Stahl. Okay, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I mean, let the dog show you, and that's what I was just talking about. Like, if somebody's doing well, and that's the importance of sports. Is one thing that I think is truly missing in the dog world. I mean, there's a few things that I think is missing. One, well, in the pet dog world is toughness. I was just talking to Brian Agnew about this. And that's one of the things that I learned in Gold School when I went with Bart and Michael, is the toughening aspect, and being able to toughen or bring about resilience. I like that word as well, but I like tough. And then there's also the what was my train of thought? I just lost here. I'll get it back. But dang it, dude, I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, just it's right here. I got it back. Standards. Mm-hmm. Standards are missing, I think, a lot of. I mean, standards are important, and that's one thing that I like about these sports, is that you're being judged on a particular standard that is well defined, and you're receiving points or points being taken away from deviating from that standard.
Mm-hmm. And I think different sports have different judging styles, and that's one of the reasons why I really like French Ring. Is you and I can watch the same routine, our score will be the same. Maybe I counted 1 meter and you counted 1.5 meters, something small like that, but it's going to be fairly similar. In IGP, there's a lot more opinion. I thought this dog showed more powerful barking. I thought this dog had more powerful heeling. To me, this looked, not natural. That there's a lot more room for interpretation in IGP, and I like that they care about the dog's emotion. But I also like in French Ring, where it's just this is the definition of foraging. This is the definition of lagging. Is the dog doing it or not? There's no interpretation. It's this is what it is, and this are the points that are assigned to that. And I like that.
I like that too. I mean, it's in interpretation, just like in IGP. I've heard about people like, oh, this judge you want to do this with, or this, right? And so that is as we go into the standards need to be well defined, and so it's not up to interpretation. It's actually that which is. And French ring. Let's talk about French ring and the history of French ring. Now that was a breed standard test for the Malinois, wasn't it? Just like
Yeah, I was in France. I'm not a history. I'm not an expert at French ring history, but it was a breed test that France created, kind of just like Schutzhund was made from the Germans.
That's right. And the German Shepherd, it was a breed standard test for the German Shepherd. Let me see if I can find anything on the history of French ring here.
I don't think it was ever a requirement for breeding, though. I could be wrong on that, but I know it, like Schutzhund, you had to be titled in Schutzhund as a breed requirement. I don't think France had that in French ring.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
And I think that this is important for people to understand, because this explains the significance of standards that we did with these dogs, and to produce these dogs, especially people that have a dog that they're like, "Ooh, I really like this dog. I want to produce more of them," and they're a shit show, or they produce dogs that or they see a dog on the television or something like that, and they want to get that breed and produce more, instead of realizing the nature of that dog. And it gets back into what I was talking about earlier, how the role of the animal has changed throughout the years, and now they're looking at, I call them looking at dogs instead of function dogs, because they like the look of these dogs, and that's their attraction to this dog, not knowing what the intention of the original purpose of this animal was bred for. And I've said often, like, if you get a dog without knowing what they were bred for, it's like buying a house without an inspection. Like, something's going to go wrong here, man. Like, you're going to encounter issues, especially with these working breeds that are not always going to be conducive to your particular lifestyle.
Yeah, and that can be a problem with adopting a shelter animal. Is it's labeled as a lab mix, and it's really a pit shepherd with some cattle dog in there, and that is not the same as a lab. It's a little bit different in terms of temperament and drives, and again, you could have a fantastic dog that's a rescue, but you need to be able to sift through them, and you need to know what you're looking for, and they need to not be labeled incorrectly, because most people don't know.
Yeah, and you're not doing any favors. In fact, you're doing a disservice to the industry if you're not including that particular dog breed within the profile of the animal. And as a pet dog trainer, I encounter this all the time. Like, I had a lady come to me with a lab, and it was a full of red-nosed pitty. I was like, "Dude, you have a pit bull?" And she's like, "I do." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, like, this is a powerful dog, and this is a full-on, like, I can see just by the head, of the animal that we got some pit in this dog, and I'm fine with it. But be honest, man. Like, know what don't just deal dogs out into the public and hide the problematic, what is perceived as a problematic breed. If this dog has pit bull in it, then let people know, especially if it could come back literally to bite them in the end here. What is and there are bark DNA, embark, right? There's these DNA tests that are pretty good now, man.
Yeah, but you're going to already have the dog by the time you do that.
Totally. And you're going to love the dog. So it's right.
Correct. And again, that might help you understand some of the drives that the dog has. But I mean, like, I have several rescue dogs. None of them are embarked. It doesn't matter. I have them. It's
totally.
One's a little white dog that I rescued off the street when one of my employees did last July. He's maybe a Maltese poodle, Shih Tzu, who the heck knows. I've got a probably maybe purebred mini Aussie. That's a double merle. She's deaf and blind. She can see just enough to bite people. She was a foster fail. I mean, it's when you have rescue dogs, that really, once you have them, it really doesn't matter what they are. because the genetics only tell you what the dog should be, not what the dog actually is. And
Yep.
when you get a dog as an adult, they are how they are. So they may have a ton of retriever and they may never chase the ball. They might have some pit and they may never be dog aggressive. But
Yep.
you also wouldn't, I always tell people, I said, you wouldn't be surprised if one day a pointer pointed at a bird. You wouldn't be surprised one day if the lab chased and retrieved the ball. Don't be surprised when one day your Corso shows human aggression or your German Shepherd starts barking at this or that. You know, there's traits, and just because they're not showing their head right away doesn't mean that one thing one day is not going to go poop and then genetics are going to pop out.
Yep, or that we don't encounter a perfect storm, just like we were talking about with Sadie and the Maltese about being tethered far away. Like there's all these conditions that come together, and then boom, we got a learned behavior. But the dog is not being bad. The dog is just being a dog and relying back on their innate abilities and intuitive, but also instinctual nature. And
which
it's
is
just
which is not appropriate for our society.
That's right. You know, especially now that our society is, you know, it's got a lot of these conveniences in it, and you know, and it's 90 million dogs in America. In 1996, I think it was 56 million. Let me see here. So yeah, and 66% of U.S. households own one pet. Here, let me show you. I could do this. So watch this. This is pretty cool. I don't know if you can see it because you're on your, but I can show this. So 89 million, 0.7 dogs, 65 million household. I'll read it to you. It's all good.
Okay.
65 million U.S. households own at least one dog. Ownership rate, 66% of U.S. households own at least one pet, right? So not just dogs, but dogs are the most popular. And then right here from 1996, 52 million, whoops, excuse me, 52 million. I keep on clicking on this thing. I didn't mean to. Well, whatever. 52 million to now 89, 90 million dogs. So that's almost, I mean, that's like 80% increase. Average of 1.5 dogs per household. So we got a half a dog in a household.
one adult dog and a small dog.
Yep. French Bulldog. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. You know, French Bulldog in 2022 took the top spot, surpassing the Lab. I didn't know that.
A good French is a good dog. Unfortunately, just like when any breed gets popular, bad Frenchie is a bulldog, and bulldogs do not have super nice traits all the time.
Yep. There's a lot of things from temperament all the way down to genetic or physical characteristics. Brachiocephalic breeds can have some issues. But dude, I have a couple Frenchies that I'm just like, hey, I would take this dog. Pippin. Mm-hmm. Shout out Pippin to Stephanie that owns Pippin. She's an awesome dog. But Stephanie also owns Muggs, who's a little, we call him the flying shit storm.
Yeah, his bulldog is showing.
Yeah, he flies into any situation to stir up shit. I'm just like, Mug, go lay down.
Yeah,
Idaho.
Scrappy.
Yeah, Idaho, that's where I'm from. Has the highest dog ownership rate, almost 60%. And New Hampshire, you guys need to get it together over at New Hampshire. You guys have the lowest dog ownership at 23.75%. So some stats there.
Going back to talking about like shelter dogs where you don't know what you're getting, that's becoming an issue with French Bulldogs. Because now you've got the merle colored, you've got long hair, you've got, what do they call it, rope nose or something. I mean, that's not naturally occurring. You're mixing breeds in to get these micros and whatever you want to call them. And so, of course, whatever you're mixing in, you're also getting those breed traits as well.
Well, I have a buddy of mine that just got, here, let me show you. Let me see if I can open up this here. So I want to find a good picture of him. He spent, I mean, I think they spent like 60 grand for this dog, dude. Like $60,000, you guys. And here, and it's a Frenchie. Let me find a good picture of him. And I'll share it real quick. This is probably the best one that I could find of him. That this Frenchie has long hair.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. And I was like, no way, show me this dog. Oh wait, window.
And you have to give them some credit because you have to know genetics. You have to know how to breed that in and then breed it back to where it looks like a Frenchie. It's not something that you can just do in one generation. So I mean, they had a goal and they reached it. I just wish that people would be honest about it.
Yeah. Here, let me see if this will do it now. Present, share screen, window. Yeah, it's still not on here. Okay, well, you guys will have to take my here. I'll pull it up on my phone, I guess. Um, and but it also goes to show you, like somebody paid, $65,000 for a puppy. Like this world of dogs is pretty deep, and you can. I mean, I heard about some of those puppies going for. I mean, there was a Tibetan Mastiff that sold for $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
just, I think just like with horses, right? You can go to the feedlot.
here he is. Here's the
Oh, he's cute. The
long-haired
problem is like
Frenchie.
they're adorable.
Yeah, look at him. Yeah. But yeah, long-haired Frenchie. That's my buddy Tucker. But yeah, $65,000 puppy.
Yeah, for a out of standard, wrong colored, that bicolor is not acceptable either.
Yeah.
Standard, but it's you have some people
It,
that are doing it right and they're absolutely losing money in their breeding programs, and you have some people who are making long-haired, off-colored French bulldogs and doing just fine. So it just, as long as you're being responsible for them, and again, people who are buying $60,000 dogs can afford the medical care, and I can guarantee you that dog's never gonna end up. I can almost guarantee that dog will never end up in a shelter.
yeah, no, this dog's not. This dog's got a good life. He doesn't even know how,
So
this
so
dog won the
you
lottery.
may, it may not be correct, but again, is that dog in danger? No. So
Yep. Well, and that's going back to what you're talking about in the shelter. Like I've had Frenchies that have had digestive issues or tens of thousands of dollars of always in that vet. And not only that, but just the quality of this dog's life and the quality of the human's life to watch this dog suffer through this ailment is, it's something I didn't know that Frenchies took over the top spot. Right. I thought that, that was learning for
and I
me
think that's
today.
been the last couple years.
Yeah.
That's not just this year.
2022.
Yep.
Right. So 2022. So the
And
last 3 years.
they've stayed at the top.
Well, and
Sorry,
that's
keep
a
moving
lot
up.
of dogs, man. That is a lot
Yeah.
of dogs. When you start to look at, 90 million dogs, there's a lot of Frenchies out there. So,
But there's also
and
several dog breeds that are going down in popularity. And if we want to save them, we need to be adopting and buying those kinds of dogs too.
you
Or
have,
else
I
we're going to
mean,
really limit those gene pools.
and you do one of these dogs that a lot of people haven't heard about. So you have your kennel, what is it?
Dupulu.
Dupaloo. So I would have murdered that. I would like Poilo. Dupaloo. So what is Dupaloo? Does that mean anything, or is that
Yeah, it just translates to fluffy because they do
okay? Which
turbs.
makes sense. So turb. So talk. We'll get back into the ring sport, but I want to talk, since we're on this subject. Why turbs, and what is a
So
turb? And
we do Malinois, and my husband loves the Belgian Tervuurens. And then recently I've kind of gotten into Newfoundlands. And
okay,
that is another story. But with the Belgians in Europe, the long hair, in Europe, you've got the Belgian Shepherd, which has 4 varieties. You've got the Grenadale, the Lacanois, the Malinois, and the Belgian Tervuren. In Europe, the only difference is the coat type. So however they are born is how they're registered. So if they've got long brown hair, they get registered as a Belgian Tervuren. If they've got long black hair, they're registered as a Grenadale. If they've got short hair, it's a Malinois. Here we categorize them as 4 separate breeds. So my husband likes to say that America is where good dogs go to die because we ruin everything.
yeah, of course.
So here we've got long-haired Malinois. So in Europe, if 2 Malinois carry the gene for long hair and they produce a long-haired dog, it's registered as a Tervuren because that's what a Tervuren is. Here, it's registered as a Malinois. So it's just a long-haired Malinois. So here we really limit our gene pool, because in Europe, anytime you have a Malinois line that carries the gene, they pop up as a turf, you're adding new blood. Here we cannot mix them. So if I have a long-haired Malinois that's AKC registered, which is a Tervuren, I cannot breed that Tervuren with an AKC Tervuren.
Interesting.
Because it's a separate breed.
Yeah, but it's not. You know,
it's not.
It's just because they say so.
Yep.
You know, well, and I think that's where we get some of these long-haired dogs that are miscolored, just because, like, I have brown skipper keys, but the AKC doesn't recognize them. I can't beat in some or anything, but I love them. They're my I call them my chocolate ships. You know, and so do they have the same temperament? Do you know what? I'm looking at these dogs and I'm looking, and I think that, like, when I look at them too, I can see how people might.
So you're looking at the show lines.
Okay, so there is a show line working line.
Look at show line Malinois and working Malinois, and they look like very different too.
Let me see the working. Let's see if that will do. Oh wow, okay. Okay, so a little bit more Mally, you know, where the show lines, I'm thinking that they look almost like a flat coat or a Sheltie, or
they've got a collie head. They've got a little pin head. They've got, you know, a lot of fluff. They're a lot more kind of delicate, and that's show is not my cup of tea. I think form obviously follows function, but I think a lot of these, I won't talk bad about things, but I don't like show lines.
I don't like show lines either, man, because of what they're looking. Remember what I was saying about looking at dogs? Mm-hmm. That's show lines to me. Like, we're not respecting the original job that this dog was bred for. And I got to tell you that I've had some of the worst cases of German Shepherd show lines that are neurotic, that are bitey. They just don't have the foundation, that the integrity of behavior, where it's just like, look, they're not doing the proper temperament testing. I don't know, but I actually had to call a lady that was a show line breeder. I'm like, dude, stop breeding these damn dogs.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, if you want to cringe, go on Crufts. I think it was last year, and look at the Belgians.
Oh, really?
Did you see them?
I saw the shepherd. I remember that shepherd that was really sloped down, and I was just like,
no, it's worse. I mean, at least that dog wasn't. I mean, the dogs were just folding back when the judge put their hand. I mean, just melting. Tail all the way tucked, just melting, cringing. They did not want to be there. They did not want to be touched.
The Mal or the Turv?
Both. All the Grenadale, the Malinois, and the Tervuren. This year was better. Again, better is a big word, but it was better. But
okay, let me see here, because I can put on video on this thing too. So, but I just got to put off the sound here. So I don't know what I'm watching here, you guys, but let's get into this. I like this. So, in this video, and this was from 2 years ago. So let's look at the Belgian Shepherd Malinois. Oh, this is 2017. So I don't know. I mean, okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2014. Or I'm sorry, 2024.
Here, I just want to see this stand for exam.
See, that looks good. Ears are up.
Yep, that looks fine. That looks fine to me. Okay, so let's find another one.
I would search maybe fearful Crufts Malinois. That might pop it up.
Scared. Okay, yeah, here we go. This is actually a where they have to hold that freaking head. Oh, look at those ears back too. I see what you're saying here. Let me share this one here. Whoa. Okay, you guys, I'm going to share this because this is what you're talking about here.
Yep.
Here, let me. I think it will replay here, but whoa, yeah, look at. I mean, those that don't know dog body language. Look at those back legs. Oh my god!
Here, take the cookie. Take the cookie.
And the dog's not even interested in the cookie. Look at those ears dropped. Yeah, here's the first of that video.
Yeah. Paw
up, and tail slammed between those legs.
Back is hunched.
Back is going into a sit and is squatting down, and mouth open as soon as she lets off that. Okay, so these are
Those are show lines at Crufts, which is a huge dog show.
and then I mean, they're just notice that they're just doing the looking at. They don't do the behavior aspect. I mean, she's pulling the cheek, like look forward. This is supposed to be a working breed, not be able to do working ones at the biggest exhibition. Terrified of being touched. Yes. Okay, that's you know what, and I don't care if you talk crap because that's crap right there to me, man. Like the dog.
Yeah, there's bad working line dogs too, but it's just, yeah, it's, you see that and you go, eeh.
Yeah, and just like with our service dogs, right? When we bring up a service dog into like for instance, we have a golden retriever, and we have a retriever that does what it wants to do, which run after a dog or run after a bird, a squirrel, or anything. They have a high prey drive. Then we're dropping that dog from the program because we don't want them leading a blind person out into traffic if they see or chasing a shadow or a leaf or something like that. There's a different standard that we need for the job for this dog to do. And just like when we need to be able and okay with dropping these dogs from the program, we need to be able and okay to recognize the standard that we want to see present and continue that course, right? And so,
oh, and what's scary is I don't know if that's group. So at dog shows, you do all the Malinois together, and then you pick the best Malinois, and that goes into the group. So if that's group, that's the best Malinois.
and those were
terrifying, huh?
Yeah, but
and
I get
best,
it.
And the best Grenadale. It's
and I've because I've dealt with this stuff, right? I've dealt with. I mean, it's a gorgeous dog. Like those are gorgeous dogs. It's
not when it's tucking its tail and slinking away.
Yeah, but not like as far as you know. I'm just talking about like the looking at aspect of it, right? And I don't know. It just perplexes me.
So I'm getting into Newfoundlands because I think there needs to be more solid pet family dogs out there.
I love Newfies.
They're fantastic. They should be. They're too big to be anything otherwise. So when you read the breed standard, it says, above all else, sweetness is the most important characteristic of the breed, above all else. And I was listening to, hopefully I'll be able to make it to the National this year, but I was listening to a chat, and apparently a lot of breeders are having issues with temperament and very like nervous dogs and dogs that are sound sensitive. And in my breeding program, I will not, that is a no. You could be the best in show, the best conformation, and the best pedigrees. If you're shy, I will not breed to that dog. And because I'm new in their breed, I have to be very careful about how I ask people, because people are very defensive. They won't just flat out, or they won't give you information unless you know how to ask for it correctly. And so you can't just say, oh, is he shy? Does he have any temperament faults? They're not going to say yes to that. You go, how is he out on walks? Like, can children just run up and give this dog a hug? How is he if, have you ever taken him to lunch and, and people drop something by him? Will he get up? How is he? And then you find out these several dogs that I was interested in are very sound sensitive, that won't approach people. They goes, oh, she's fine. She probably won't go say hi to somebody. Well, that's a no. Yep. That's a no for me. Oh yeah, but her parents and grandparents are grand champions and this, that, and the other, and she's got her hips and elbows. Like, no, that's, those are, the hips and elbows are obviously very important that they're health tested, because the Newfoundlands do have a lot of health issues, but temperament should be number one for whatever you're trying to breed for. Malinois need to have the temperament for work. Newfoundlands need to have the temperament. I mean, for what I'm breeding for, it's not their original purpose, which was, draft and water rescue. But both of those things, you need a very solid, social, stable dog. Yes. And when the breed standard says that sweetness is number one, sweetness is not shying away. And it's interesting because the FCI standard, the AKC standard, and the Canadian standard all have different definitions on temperament. So like the American Kennel Club just says sweetness and no aggression. In Canada, they say no shyness, no fearfulness, no aggression, and sweetness. So they're a little bit more specific in terms of what that temperament actually is, because there's a lot of nervous dogs out there too.
Yeah, and even with these search and rescue dogs, the German Shepherds that I have up here in Snohomish County, the modern day American methodology of search and rescue, one of the first dogs trained was here in this county, in Snohomish County, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at the temperament of these dogs, like you're in a search and a rescue environment, you're dealing with people that are, I mean, not just the people that we're looking for, but the family that are coming up and are undergoing a degree of trauma and undergoing a degree of distress because they can't find a loved one. And if we have a dog that is shy, that is reactive, then that's not going to help the situation. We need a dog that is overall friendly and outgoing, and especially when the handler needs a break, we train these dogs to do a cross formation where the dogs sit in front of each other, 4 dogs in one, and then they just do a downstay for at least a half hour, right? So the handler can go to the bathroom, can go get a bite to eat, can take a little snooze or whatever they need to do before they need to go back out. And these dogs, there's a lot of different behaviors that these dogs need to be able to do that people just don't think about. And these situations it's a bigger picture approach, right? And for water rescue and what was the other thing for
draft,
which are pulling things like
pulling
think
carts.
Man, you don't want a dog with a cart full of milk get spooked by a horn or something that goes by and then ruin all your product by running off, right? There's purpose behind these specifications that we're looking for. We want a dog to recover very well and be okay in their environment. And so it just makes sense to me. It's just that we forget the original intent of this stuff. And they become looking at dogs. I had one of my worst cases was a Newfie that killed the neighbor dog that ran into their yard. And I think it was a Maltese or a Bichon. But because the dog ran into their yard, the dog killed it on their property. The neighbors sued, and they didn't win because the dog ran into the other neighbor's property. But you better believe that it caused a lot of discontent in that neighborhood. Like they hated each other, right? And they had 4 or 5 Newfies, and one of the Newfies would go counter surfing, steal something, and get super possessive in the corner of this hall. And I saw it myself, man, where this dog it put the hair up on the back of my neck. He got something, he ran over there, and I was trying to get it away from him, and just like super hovering over the object, and I did get it away from him, but it was, I mean, I had a protocol, I had a leash on him, and I mean, this isn't and I remember saying to these people, like, this isn't the way it should be with these dogs. No. They should be just slobbering. That's one thing that I can't stand about them is the slobber. Otherwise, I'd have one.
I mean, mine aren't too bad, but it's also, I've found, again, they're classically conditioned droolers, right? So if you start feeding, but they have more mouth to drool out of, so I don't train with food with them. They only get fed out of the bowl, and I really have minimal drooling.
Okay, well, that's a good suggestion. Hey, look who's joining us.
Hey, Sergio.
What's up, buddy? Sergio, thank you for putting me in touch. He's the one that mentioned, and this is why we're talking. So this is a result of our talk that we had. We have another comment here. French Ring 3 dog was the most serious dog I faced in a suit. Damn right it was. And not only that, but this one, we'll get back to the French Ring aspect because I want to talk about the decoys as well, because this is like college for decoys. And some of the most impressive, that's one of the things that when Sergio and I were talking, we were doing some videos about with some of these level 3 decoys, and I was just like blown away by the ability of some of these decoys, and people don't realize the work that it takes to go with that. George Cockrell. George was just in the hospital. I think he still might be in the hospital. He's had some heart issues. I love you, George. George has been training dogs longer than I've been alive, Bethany. He's one of the OGs. And so I send you love and prayers, my man, for healing, and you and Jess, and just a love and respect and appreciate you, brother. So anything else we want to say about the goofballs and Newfies before we start getting off onto another?
No, just I mean, I love them. They're so much fun, and they're so different than the Malinois, so I got into Newfies because in 2020 our 2 seniors passed away at 14 and a half. Okay. And we wanted a good family dog because our son was 2 at the time. Um, and I wanted a pug. My best friend growing up always had pugs. I just wanted a nice little family dog. And my husband's like, well, I've always wanted a Newfoundland. I said, I love big dogs. Sure, why not? So that's what got us into Newfies. But they're just, I mean, for me, they're big dogs, you know, so you have to know how to handle a big dog, but they don't pull on the leash because they don't want to walk that fast. You stop, they lay down because it's a good place to take a nap. They love a good Newfoundland, loves everything and everyone. You know, most of mine only know their name. I can take them anywhere and they're just like, oh my God, they're so well trained. No, they're well behaved.
Yeah.
It's completely different. My Malinois is well trained and he is not well behaved. He's meanwhile like on a table chewing a Kong or something.
Being a Mal.
Yeah, the Malinois or the Newfoundlands are just politely laying down, you know. So it's just
what about the
refresh.
grooming a Newfie? Is that something that is that people need to be aware of? Is it
Yeah, they need to be brushed.
Okay.
I'm really bad at it. Because the Newfoundlands like the standard is showing, so I have shown them. I show UKC versus AKC because there's no professional handlers. It's very casual. You don't have to get all dressed up. So I've shown UKC and I give them a good groom before we go to a UKC show. Besides that, when they shed, I give them a good brush out, but I'm not like grooming them every day.
Okay. But they're not like poodles where they need cut. Their hair is not always growing. No. Okay. And same with the turves, like you're combing them out, as I assume, as well.
So again, show lines and working lines have very different hair needs. There's also different variations within the breed in terms of how much coat they're going to have. So most of our adults that we've imported from France as an adult, they stay with a lot of coat.
Okay.
The ones that are born here tend to have a lot less coat because they've been acclimated to the heat. It's very hot in Riverside. They've been acclimated to the heat since they were little, so they don't have thick undercoats because they don't need them. And same thing with the Newfoundlands, because I'm in Southern California, they don't get crazy coats because they don't need them.
Yep. Like I'm up here in Seattle and you're in Oregon. And even now, I mean, that's what I love about this environment is that it's wet, right? Those freaking thumbs. Mm-hmm. But it's also the temperature. It doesn't get too hot in the summer. It doesn't get too cold in the winter. And so I love that this, as far as dogs and my barn, being able to train in there when it does get wet, but being in a moderate temperate climate by the water here lends itself to working dogs. Like I don't have to worry about taking them out and in the heat of the day, like I was out in Arizona or Southern California or something like that, where it does get too hot. Sergio wants to see if we can talk more about the difference between being well-trained and well-behaved. I think it's super important. I just want to hear your thoughts on it again.
So, I mean, it's well-trained is a dog that knows all kinds of commands. A dog that's well-behaved is a dog that doesn't need all kinds of commands. That doesn't mean that you can't have a dog that's also well-trained and well-behaved. But you get some people who go, oh, you know, my last dog, I could leave the front door open and he would go out in my front yard and he would never leave my property. The dog probably wasn't trained. He just didn't really want to wander off. Yeah. You know, the dog, like I said, the example of walking nicely on a leash. The Newfoundlands are well behaved because they don't have the drive to go really fast. They don't have the drive to go chase things or go do this. They're content with just a do, which is the pace that most people want to go for a walk. So they end up healing because they want to walk the same speed as you. A Malinois wants to run 100 miles per hour. And so you're fighting with them to convince them and to motivate them that walking by your side is the best place and dragging is not the most effective way to get to where you want to go. So they need more training. So I think the better fit that you get based off of what you need and what you're able to provide, the less training you really need.
Yeah. Well, and I call well-behaved dogs push-button dogs. Like it's like, it's set it and forget it, man. Like this dog is going to be awesome. That's one of the reasons why, like I offer matchmaking services where I will find the right dog for you and your family. And it's my favorite thing to do, Bethany, I swear, because people, they just don't know the importance of having a well-behaved dog and the temperament that this dog will be needed to suit in your lifestyle. And a lot of times, honestly, it's about being a lazy dog in a family. But on the flip side, as professionals, guess what the majority, the brunt of our work is not going to be a well-behaved dog. we need
It's
it.
stop it.
Yeah,
Stop
it's
doing
it.
this. Stop getting in the trash. Stop pulling. Stop doing this. Stop digging. Stop. It's just stop it.
Yes,
But
knock
if
it
you
off,
have a
man.
dog that doesn't want to do a lot of things, you have less stop it.
Yep, but I think as professionals, we need to know, like, that's the majority of the dogs. Like, I love it when I get a puppy. I love it when I get somebody that calls me beforehand and is like, "Hey, will you help us find the right dog?" And I'm like, "Of course I will. I love to do that." Because a lot of the times we're putting out fires, like you said, it's stopping. We're introducing the well trained, or trying to get this dog well trained by, first off, like, stopping the problematic behaviors, which isn't going to be done with positive reinforcement only. Like, we need to provide boundaries, and we need to, redirect or reward behavior that is more more wanted behavior, right? Then but sometimes we need to, especially if that behavior is problematic, we need to meet some of these behaviors head on and show the dog, like, knock that off, man, like, this needs to stop, and then redirect or to offer a solution. But in a way, like you were saying that Ken would do, we need to explain the why. The why is the power, and not just explain it in a way that, on a collegiate level, we need to use analogies. We need to have ways that our pet people that aren't dog trainers are going to understand and be able to implement the training in a way that makes them confident that it will work and keep up the course of action without over explaining, and putting it in a way that they know how they got into the situation they're in, and how to get out of it too.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, what do they say? If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't really understand it yourself, or a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
I can't remember what age, but it's true. You need to be able to simplify the training. And with most of my clients, I don't even use markers because they can barely remember not to say sit down. Why are we adding more things? I mean, for me, with my pet clients, why are we making it more complicated than it needs to be? Keep it, what do they say? Keep it simple, stupid, right? Like,
Yep.
for me, it needs to be obtainable. The owners aren't going to put in 500 reps. They need something that they can easily do, that it's easily to explain. It's easy for them to remember. It needs to be simple, so that way everybody can be on the same page. And that way they're not arguing over, well, you said good, you're supposed to say yes, or, there's certain words that are obviously important, but I think it's also equally important as a trainer. And I have some clients that want to know the whys, and they love for me to send them articles and to go down the scientific rabbit holes of the whys in the house. But most
Yes.
pet people don't. They just want the dog to stop, and they want to know what they need to do to follow through to get the dog to stop. And I usually tell my clients too that obedience is kind of the gap between who your dog is and who you want them to be.
Okay, I like that.
So if your dog wants to eat people out the door, let's teach them a place. He can't be doing both, right? It's an incompatible behavior. If your dog is barking and lunging and wants to eat other dogs on walks, let's teach him a solid heel. It's an incompatible behavior.
Yep. And then we use that motivation that they have to bark and to lunge as a way to help them generalize and proof this training, right? And so, but we don't just rush right into it. There's increments of how we can get
Oh, of
there,
course. Yeah.
right? But that's why I like, it's the gap, right? We're here right now, but we have increment. We're not just going to make this jump right over here to this gap because it's too far. And guess what? In this gap.
And I preach social a lot. You have to socialize your dogs. And I see people with, 10-week-old, 12-week-old puppies go, look, I already taught them to sit and shake. And, I see it a lot in the sport dog people. They're so happy their dog can do all of these, goes between the legs and heels. And it's like, fantastic. Your dog is scared of this, or he's barking and lunging at dogs, or he's, doing this. You need to make sure that your dog is social and comfortable and confident. And then everything is so much easier afterwards, But you have that key socialization period. Those first 13 weeks are super important. I don't care about obedience with puppies anymore. I mean, I teach puppies to lure, to give a little bit of pressure, pushing on their belly and helping them sit. And I teach them, so lure, leash, and free shaping. Those are the 3 things that I kind of do with puppies. And usually I'll still wait until after 13 weeks or so to even do those 3 things. But once my dog has that foundation, then everything is so much easier if I have a dog that's social and stable and comfortable and confident. But if you have a dog, your fear is always going to override obedience. Always.
It's
and
instinctual.
So if you fix that first and you socialize the puppy, which is very, very important to everything that the dog is going to have to encounter in life, not just as a puppy, but later when they're old or when they're retired or maybe it didn't work out and you have to place them, your puppy needs to be socialized. And I think that's where a lot of working dog people, they get it wrong. They don't let other people, they're so focused on engagement, they don't let people play with the puppy.
Yeah.
What if you have to place this dog one day? Nobody else can touch it. How are you going to place it? The dog's never been in the house. You never taught him house manners. You never potty trained him. How are you going to place this dog? How are you going to retire this dog? So social is very important.
Well, and the retirement aspect is sometimes longer than their working life, right? And so it's like they what time do they, or what age do they usually stop working? Like 8, 7? Is that not my?
It really depends. I think this last year there was how old was she? I don't want to butcher it. I want to say it was an L year. 9.
What's L year?
She was in France. They have a French naming system. It might have been an I, actually.
Interesting.
It might be an I. So in France, each year is assigned a letter. So based off of the dog's name, you can tell the kennel that they're from, the year that they're born. So like Grisby, my first Malinois, who was born in 2011, all the dogs born that year are registered, name starts with a G. So is Grisby Dizome Valroux. So based on his name, you could tell the kennel that he came from and the year that he was born. So it makes it super easy. But I think this year there was a female who, in the female, she retired after, but I want to say she was at least 9 or 10. She could have been 11. She was older, but her owners does like chiropractic and things like that. So the dog was in very good shape. But yeah, I usually retire my dogs around 7. That's if they don't get hurt before.
Yeah,
because I want to maintain their bodies. I don't want to wait for them to get injured. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. They keep going until a dog goes, oh, he got hurt. Well, guess what? Now you've got an old dog that's going to have a harder time recovering, and now you're not going to be able to do all the fun retirement things because now he's got a blown knee or whatever.
Yeah, I got to have surgery, and anytime that we do surgery on an old dog, I tell people it just makes them older because now they need to heal the attacks, and that it does, going through the anesthesia and all that stuff it taxes that body, man. And what I was going to say about, I agree fully with the socialization aspect too. Like even with working dogs, man, get them out of that crate, get them out in the world. We have a lot of contraptions in this world that provoke a fear response, from strollers, skateboards, school buses. I got a dog, maybe somebody's coming up the driveway, but or trash cans, rolling trash cans. There's so many things that these dogs are going to encounter in the human world that are novice and that are or not novice, but that are novel, excuse me, that are just natural things that we have, right? And so we always need to take that 30,000 foot view. And that's what I do in my puppy classes. Like I'll take 15 minutes of like just discussing some of the, the psychology of the dog, how they think, how they perceive the world. Yeah. Chill. And but then I'm letting them off and I'm letting them play with puppies. I want them social. I want them interacting with puppies. And I want them, if somebody has a dog that runs up to them, I'll say, yeah, greet the dog. I do a command for my dogs too. When as a puppy, whenever somebody wants to say hello to my dog, I tell my dog, say hello to our friend, right? And so I give the dog a little structure to give them the wherewithal that they are now going to socialize with somebody that I've approved, and you can see that they acknowledge and they run up to that person and their tails wagging and stuff like that, and that's baked in since they were a little puppy, over and over and over again. Because what people don't realize when we're dealing with problem behavior is that the middle of this gap, I also call it the messy middle, because sometimes it could get messy here, especially depending on the behavior that we're dealing with. And that's why they're working with a professional, so I can help them get to the other side of this gap. But we're going to encounter change and uncertainty with this dog. So might as well have the dog have the experience, during the formative years. That's the formative years. So let's build a format that the dog can draw back on for the rest of their life, that will give them experiences that are going to help them in case we do encounter problematic behaviors.
Yeah, and I think knowing genetics is also important, because I mean, a good golden retriever or a lab, you lock them in the closet, you open it up 6 months later, and like, hi, right? And they love everything and everyone. If with a Malinois, a German Shepherd, we breed them to have suspicion of people. And so they need most aggression is based in fear. It's just, do they have confidence in how to handle it? And we talked a little bit about toughness earlier. I think most pet dog people are fantastic at building toughness. You got dogs that are dragging their owners through a prong collar, and they're getting yelled at. And, you've got these tough dogs, right? They go, hey, knock it off, and the dog's like, yeah, right, and running the fence line and hitting it, and because they started with small increments, and they slowly build it up, they're really good at toughening these dogs. I mean, I have lots of clients that'll come for an eval or something, go, hey, let me give you a puppy, give it back to me when they're a year, and do exactly what you've been doing with this dog, because this is what I'm looking for. This is not what you're looking for. Or I'll have them, come watch when we're raising little puppies and we're doing bite work with them. See how we have them on the harness? See how we're building frustration by holding them back? See how we're letting them almost have it, but it's just quite out of reach? I said, you're doing all of these things. You're building all this drive and you're not trying to. I said, we're doing the exact same things that you are, and we're trying to. So I said, you need to do the opposite of that. And that's what I like about, if you know how to teach a dog to bite and emotions and things like that, then it's also easier to teach them not to do it. So I think learning both sides of the coin is pretty cool as well.
Yeah, you have a good point there, and that's one of the reasons why, like, ne popo, right, is like, that's what I tell when I was a gold multiplicator, like, when people come up to me, and I was like, look, I'm in this for the pet dog world. I'll tell you, when I've done a couple of my schools, I said that I asked the people, how much my clients want to know about ne popo?
Yeah, 0.
Big fat 0. Many. Oh, look at that.
They made a heart.
Yeah. I was like, do you know how many pedestals I've built in my life for my clients? 1, and it's for a client that had a perfect spot for it, and he had a German Shepherd. And it was right outside before he came in, and I showed him how to comb, and it was on a post that fit the brackets perfectly. So but I built 1, right? The ne popo is good for, just like what you're saying, Bethany, is like, how did the dog get into this situation? The dog is pulling on that leash, nay, dog gets to where they want, sniffing the tree or whatever, and then the release, the pressure goes away, right? And then you pet the dog or something like that. Like, this is like how to reverse engineer how the gasoline got into the dog to do the wrong thing, right? And it's
because you get dogs that are gasping for air, they're choking themselves. I mean, like, you get some that are pulling so hard they flop over, like, oh, he's choked himself. That's why we switched the harness. They have so much drive to pull, so much drive, and it's not like you're giving them treats. It's just they really like to do those certain innate behaviors, and they learn that it works, right? Just a little bit of uncomfortable, and then pressure turns off, and you get what you want, and then you get to pee on it too, right? So it's you add the extra poo on there as well.
Well, and when you pee, then we have another form, I think, in positive, because now we're maybe it would be negative reinforcement because now we're taking away something full bladder to reinforce the behavior, but it's also the feeling of relief, right? Is a better, so we might be adding the feeling of relief, which might be a positive, but we won't get into that. I want to get back into the French ring stuff because even what you were saying about the letters, I'm just like, no way, man, this is so cool. They think of everything, and so you is the only reason why you got into French ring because of the club was by you, or?
Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
so you
And
were kind of,
yeah. So I think having something that's nearby that you can be in a club is super important, because you're not likely to go drive 5 hours one way, or you're going to do it maybe once a week, and you're just not going to have as much success. You need to have something that's nearby that you can go to, that you can have spotters, that you can. It's just like how a lot of people aren't motivated to work out at home. They go to the gym. It's the same thing with the dog stuff. I mean, just like with the gym or with dogs, you should be doing your homework at home as well. You can't just eat crap and go to the gym 3 times a week and expect to have results. You have to be doing your homework at home, which is the same with the dogs. But I wanted to have somewhere where I could go. And it also was a social, I was in early 20s, so I wanted to socialize. And, I wasn't into the partying scene of going out to bars and stuff. I hung out in Compton Friday nights with my training clubs and trained my dogs. Sunday mornings, I left my house at 7 a.m. to go train my dogs. So I wasn't really into that scene, and having other people that have this same shared passions and motivations, you have that sense of belonging, which I think is important. I met a lot of friends through that club, and a lot of people that I still talk to today. So, I mean, that's how I met my husband, was through French Ring. My club brought him out for a seminar, and I was in charge of taking him out and like sightseeing and stuff. And we were just friends the first time that he was here, and the second time we went to regionals and we started dating, and I went to France for a month. We got engaged, we got married, and that was 10 years ago last week.
Happy anniversary. I just had my 21st anniversary. So
yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, it's beautiful how, the things that come about this, so, and in Compton too.
Yep.
C-U-M-P-T-O-N, the city. No. All right. Let me see here. So French ring, brevet. And I think that Sergio just got he just got ring one. If Serge, if you're still here,
Yeah,
let me know.
He got his brevet.
In Mexico City?
Yep.
Okay. So it's
so French ring, it's agility, obedience, and protection. The entry level is the brevet, and that is a certificate. And then ring 1, 2, and 3 are all titles. You have to get 2 legs. You have to pass twice under different judges, and then you become a ring 1. So 2 passing scores above 80% is what's considered a pass. The brevet, I think, is one of the hardest levels to pass because you have to get 80% of your bite work. So even if your obedience is perfect and your total would be above 80%, so you have to get 80% of each of the 2 bite work exercises.
Okay. Do you have to go through the brevet with 2 judges, or is that 1?
No, it's a certificate. So just one judge.
Okay.
And you have to get a CSAU, which is a temperament test. It's easier than a CGC, but it just shows that the dog is safe before you can get started.
Yeah, I was talking to Sergio about that, and then I was also lending some of my and I'm like, dude, I don't do French ring but I've trained a ton of dogs, and here's how I would approach this problem or this problem, and hopefully you got some help from it. Competitive levels with ring 3 being the highest to advance the next level. Yep, just like you said, successfully pass 2 tests under 2 different judges with at least 80% of the possible points. Let me see. It doesn't really give so what is ring 1? What are you looking for under ring 1?
So the brevet is leash.
Or brevet, I should say.
Yeah, brevet is leash, food, muzzle, absence, face, and then defense. And the brevet is always in that order.
Say that again.
It's leash, food, muzzle, absence, face, defense.
So, and defense. So leash. Okay, I'm getting into
leash
this.
Is so on your brevet, the whole thing is done off leash, except for the heel on leash.
Okay.
And then the next one is food. The food refusal, you leave your dog in a designated spot, you go into a blind, somebody comes out and throws a piece of food at the dog. They can't eat it. Muzzle is a heel with a muzzle on. So in France, dogs are allowed in a lot more public places. So like at restaurants, like inside restaurants, you'll see people sitting with dogs, trains, things like that. It's a lot more dog friendly. But if somebody's uncomfortable, they can ask you to put a muzzle on the dog. So the heel with muzzle is to show that the dog is trained to wear a muzzle. And then absence of handler, and the brevet is always in a down. You leave the dog in a down, you go behind a blind for 1 minute, and then you come back out.
And the
The
dog
face
can't
attack,
break the down.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't move and they can't break the down.
Okay.
And then the face attack is a long attack. The dog goes and bites for 15 seconds, whistle, and you recall the dog. Or in a brevet, you can actually go pick them up. A lot of people don't know that rule. So you would tell the dog to out, and then you'd go up, and then you'd whistle and recall the dog closer.
And then when you say face attack,
And
that
then
means face to face. That doesn't mean face, right? So
they're not biting your face, no.
right.
It's
Okay.
the decoy is facing the dog. They're not fleeing.
Right.
The decoy is facing. And then you've got the defensive handler. So that's where you walk up with the dog, you say hi to the person comes up behind you and attacks you from behind. The dog is supposed to protect you and bite. So it's got a 10-second bite, a 5-second guard, and then a recall.
So the face attack, is that which category is that one in?
It's in all of them. It just gets harder.
No, I mean in the brevet. So we have leash, food, absence, defense. So would the face attack be defense?
You've got face and then your defensive handler. The face attack is first.
Okay.
They just switched that a little bit ago. That's a newer rule. It used to be, those two used to be switched.
Well, and then they call like, I guess they would call it an IGP, a courage test, or no, PSA, would that be courage, where the handler is running, or excuse me, the decoy is running towards the dog. Whatever, we'll stick with ring. So ring one. So now we're done with brevet, those four. Now
so
what is ring?
You're always going to be adding things. So you never lose those original exercises. But in ring
leash,
one, yep.
food.
But now they also can be in a random order. So they pull the obedience exercises. It's still always your jump, your obedience, your protection, but the order of the exercises is never the same.
Okay. And is it random, or is it?
They're split into two categories. So then you bounce back between picking the two categories.
So the two categories, like food and leash, or is that?
So the easiest way that I remember it is things that you throw. So your retrieve, the food refusal, that's in one stack, and the other one is going to be your heel with leash, heel with muzzle positions.
Okay.
So in ring one, you get your choice of a jump. So you've got the hurdle, the broad jump, and the palisade, and you get to pick whichever one you want to do.
Okay.
And
the hurdle isn't that just the gap thing with the slats of wood, or?
No, I think you're thinking of the broad jump.
Okay, that's what
the hurdle is, it kind of looks like an IGP hurdle. It looks a little bit different. You've got poles on the top, and then you've got a key. The lowest to get any points is 0.9. To get your full points, it's 1 meter at ring one. Okay. And then ring two, it's 1.1. Yeah, it's 1 meter, 1.1, and then 1.2 for ring three.
So I don't know who any of these handlers are, or who any of these dogs. I'm just putting them up randomly here, but this looks like a hurdle. So it's a retrieve. It's a retrieve, jump over object. It's like it'd be like advanced obedience.
No, there's no retrieve.
In the hurdle, okay. He had a dumbbell in his hand. That's why I was.
Oh, then that's not.
Okay, yeah, he still has the hurdle in his hand.
It's training, but yeah, that looks like a hurdle. Yeah, so the dog, I don't know what they're doing here. It looks like they're training because I see markers on the ground, but the dog jumps. You can only tell them to stay. Then there's another horn. No, yeah, there's nothing on the ground.
Okay, so this is training.
Yeah, so in the way that it looks like in French ring, you leave your dog, you walk up to the key, you tell your dog to jump, they jump over it. You can only tell them to stay. There's another horn. Then you can either give a placement command where you can tell them place, back, sit, down, stand, whatever you want before your jump command. and then the dog has to automatically come back to heel position. So in French ring, there's a lot of different ways that the handler can lose points for the dog. And I think that's a big problem in handlers is they don't know the rule book. They teach exercises before they know how they're scored. And if you don't know how, people have beautiful heeling that would be wonderful in PSA, and it would be continuous forging, which would be half of your points in French ring.
Goodness. So I found one with you, I think. Yeah, this is with you and Nate. So let me remove add to stage. Oh, this is a training too, it looks like. Maybe this might not be you.
Gunner.
That's Gunner, so you do recognize. Yep. And you are training because he has a place there. And then there's a hurdle. And then back to a ball. So this French ring protection dog sports. Shout out to Nate, my buddy.
So Gunner was a pet dog that I raised for a client. Anytime the owner would go out of town, he'd come with me. And he was only trained pet dog obedience. And from when I met the dog when he was maybe 10 weeks old, I was like, wow, this is a nice, I'm not a German Shepherd person. I said, this is a really nice dog. I said, I don't know papers, but send them to me so I can see. Both his parents were imports. And he started biting the kids. They'd be jumping on the trampoline. He'd go underneath and try to get their feet. And they're like, yeah, the wife's really freaking out. And I said, well, send him to his place. I mean, this dog had better obedience training than any of my dogs because he was with me so often and usually have more time for your client dogs than you do for your own.
And that's the truth.
And so when he was 2, he's like, no, the wife's freaking out. I mean, this dog went to work with him every day. The dog had it made. And he said, the wife is just really nervous about him with the kids. And I said, normally you could not pay me to take my clients' dogs, let alone a German Shepherd. I said, but if you don't want this dog, I will come pick him up right now. And he said, okay, come get him. Within 1 year, first I did his hips and elbows to make sure thing was good. And within 1 year of no competition training, I got him through both legs of his ring 1, competed in France with him, but he ended up getting Lyme disease and I had to retire him. So, but he was a unicorn of a dog, the most social, stable, non-squeaky, he was a fantastic dog.
I love shepherds like that, German shepherds like that, because a lot of them.
He was pretty too, which didn't hurt.
He was good looking. So protection of phase 1, it looks like defensive handler, face attack, retrieve, thrown and unseen, guard an object. Ooh, the guard an object. That's the one that
So that's the higher levels. So ring 1, 2? No, the object guard is ring 3. So ring 1, you're going to add your jump, your choice. You're going to add a thrown retrieve, and you're going to add a pistol attack or the guard affirm and a flee attack. Then ring 2, which I think is the biggest jump between the levels, is between ring 1 and ring 2. You're adding 2 more jumps. So now you've got all 3 jumps. You have, you have your scene retrieve and you have your search.
Search and bark.
Your search and escort. So the search and bark is actually only worth 10 points. The escorting is worth the other 30.
No kidding.
And that's where, again, people, so the escort is judged based off of how quickly the dog can bite. So the farther the decoy gets away, you lose 1 point per meter. So if the decoy escapes 2 meters before the dog catches him, you get -2. So there's an initial escape out of the blind, and then you've got three escapes. So a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on having a really vigilant escort, but they don't clean up dirty bites. So every time the dog takes a cheap shot, it's -2 points.
Right, there's a cheap shot.
They have to make pressure. I wasn't paying attention.
Oh,
so they're allowed to open mouth punch, but
there has
to be pressure. But this looks like a dog in white since he's on leash. So dog in white, it's either dog in white or training.
Oh, there's
so dog
pressure.
in white is It looks like it's training because he didn't even escape out of the blind. The dog in white is like basically a demo dog. So that way the handlers can see the exercise. If they have any questions, they can ask, and they can, if they disagree with any of the decoy work, that's when they can bring it up.
That's kind of cool, man.
Yeah.
And so that's the escort right there.
Yep.
Okay, between the decoy's legs.
They can be anywhere.
Okay. Let me see if I can find a better one. This one says escort, and this one's far away though.
Yeah, so another difference between French ring and like IGP, the IGP search is obviously directed, right? In French ring, you can set the dog up in any direction and you tell them to go. You're not allowed to do any kind of body language or signaling or also get points off. So if the decoy knows exactly, or I'm sorry, if the dog knows exactly where the decoy is, they can go straight to that blind and they won't lose any points. They don't have to run the whole lap if they know where the dog, I mean, it's safer because if they get it wrong, they're going to lose points.
And then the decoy is going to run out of here?
Yeah, he's going to escape if this is a dog in white. Yeah.
And then boom, he just
So
nailed
yeah,
him
so
right.
so he shoots, there's a gunfire and an escape. And then the handler will come and take the gun away if this looks like it's training.
Yep,
So in trial, the decoy would stay not moving on the out. The handler would come up and disarm them, and then the handler has to walk behind the decoy. And every time the dog catches, the handler has to stop. They out the dog, and then they resume that escort.
And I see him popping the collar. If the dog's lagging or something, I guess he's just trying to teach the dog, stay with me here. And then the dog's kind of dripped into the side there. Yeah, this is training. Man, you got to, talking about these decoys, dude. This is like next level decoy stuff. So let's talk about that. And then but then I want to talk first, before we get into that, I want to talk about the guard, the object. So then, so now we're talking about ring 2.
So that's for ring 2. And then in ring 3, again, you're always adding on. So in ring 3, you have your 3 jumps, but they're higher. Each level, the distance is higher, or the height is higher. You have your send away. You have your unseen retrieve, which is that scent discrimination. It used to just be one other object, and now it's 3 other objects, including yours. You've got your stopped attack, and you have the object guard.
Okay, here, I'm going to try to find this video that Nate showed me a long time ago here, where I was just blown away by some of these navies. No, that's not it. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay, so let me see if I can pull this one up. Okay, yes, I can. Maybe. Oh, wait, that's on a totally different screen here. I will find this one here. Yeah, this stuff is fascinating, man. Like, and not only that, but this is when did French ring get invented? Do you know?
I don't know. It's old. I mean, it's changed a lot as well. I mean, they used to, like you talked about, the dogs jumping over. They used to have a pit for the hurdle. They used to have a pit for the broad jump. So there's just a cutout in the ground. The dogs used to jump into cages on the palisade.
Look at this, man. And this is, I assume, is this 3?
Yeah, and that looks like it's likely either selective.
So what's going on here? Is it? I mean, it looks like a face. Would this be a face attack?
That's a face attack. Yep.
Yep.
So the difference in IGP, it's called a helper, right?
Yeah.
The guy who wears the sleeve. In French ring sport, it's homme attack. It's the man of attack. So in French ring, the dog or the decoy is trying to not get bit.
So cool.
So that was a bite on the stop attack. So these are all stopped attacks now.
Where the handler is calling the dog off.
Yep. So the closer So that was a naughty stopped attack. So based off of how far the dog is by the time you recall. So like in my opinion, that dog wasn't coming to bite, so that would also be a 0.
Really? Okay.
The dog has to be coming to bite and then get called off, which is very hard because you have dogs that are not stupid, right? They go, my last attack was a face, so this next attack is going to be a stop. Why am I running down the field when I know what's going to happen? So this is the object guard. So
So
again,
there's a circle.
It's judged on distance.
Okay.
And the handler is out of sight in a blind. So this, yeah, I think this is selective. I couldn't tell you what year.
And if the handler gets the object, looks like 2015.
Yeah, so if the decoy steals it based off of how far he can move it, he's going to get points off. So as soon as he bites, as soon as the dog bites the decoy has to put it down.
The dog was. And if as soon as the handler touches the object, is the dog allowed to bite him?
He's allowed to bite him whenever he wants. For full points, then it's distance. So after 1 meter, you start losing points. So it needs to be close.
So the dog can just bite him if he before he even touches the object?
Correct. And that's the goal, because if he can touch the object, you're going to start losing points. Okay. He doesn't even have to take it. If he touches it for longer than 5 seconds, he's right. And you have to remember, a lot of these are after 45 minutes. If this is one of the last exercises, these dogs are tired. It's not like IGP where you go from, or PSA even, where you're going from, okay, now it's obedience and now we're doing protection. It's all together. So the dogs know after obedience, bite work is coming. So you get a lot of dogs that start looking for the decoy, and you get a lot of dogs that, and especially in France too, if they're living in an area that's very cold, and the finale is in June, so it tends to be very hot. It's a long routine. The dogs have to be conditioned.
Man, this is so cool. I don't know why they don't do more object guards or this type of thing in other sports. I think maybe they do in a little bit of a derivation of this in PSA.
They have it in Mondio Ring.
And Mondio Ring as well, okay.
Yeah, and in Mondio Ring, the decoys can have articles.
Okay. Well, that's why I'll talk to Jacqueline, my buddy that just made it to nationals this year, Mondio.
So the other thing too is not even the dog going to bite, but they have to go back on their own. So the dog has to, on their own, decide when it's okay to bite and when to go back.
Wow. Oh, dude, I like that dog.
And again, when the decoys are falling and you're biting, you're not hearing an out. So you get a lot of these dogs that are, where they'll take vengeance, and you got a meter, or they're supposed to not be moving, but if they shake and they get some movement out, you get a lot of dogs that'll self-satisfy and just keep biting. And then once the dog keeps biting, they take the dog away, and then they can come back. So they get points if they can displace the dog as well.
Fascinating stuff. There's not too many clubs in America.
It's not a super popular sport.
This is so cool, man. Bethany, how do people get a hold of you? Oh, wait, here, let me see. So we got a couple comments here. Saw the object guard in person for the first time at the All Breed Ringers trial last weekend. Looks impossible.
Yeah, so Scabber just had a trial last weekend.
And then we have a question. Freebirds asks, why would they jump into cages after the palisade? I don't know what that means.
So before, they used to have like chain link fencing around the palisade. And so the dog would jump over, climb the wood wall, and then would basically be in a chain link cage. Now the dogs have the opportunity to go around.
Okay.
And if they do, then obviously they get points off. But before, it was more of a test just for the dog's athletic ability, not so much obedience. The heights also used to be higher. Oh, so wow. We've already kind of started softening the
dwindling
sport.
Yeah, it seems to happen even with the AKC stuff, like the prerequisite in the early 90s of an obedience title before you go into agility or rally was dropped, right? And I think if they even brought stuff like that back, that we would see a little bit better sport as well. It's not a test of control, he says.
Yeah, it was more the dog's jumping abilities. And recently they added a ramp for the Palisade. So now instead of just climbing up the wood wall and coming down, now there's a ramp on the backside. And then the jump kind of looks like that. So the dog would jump over, would go down, and then they flip it. So then it's like this. So they're always going up the tall side of it, but they have a ramp on the other side. I'm okay with that because I've seen a lot of dogs get hurt or they launch themselves off, and it's pretty tall. But I think when they did do that, they should have increased the height.
Oh, I see. So here, let me show you this. This I think it shows. I don't think this is a Mal, but this is. Do you see the ramp on the other end of that? Is that what you're talking about? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now it's not so. It's a little bit steeper.
Okay.
That's the door here, I think. Hold on.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second here.
Okay, and then. Awesome, guys. So Bethany's got somebody at the door here. I'll go solo here. So, whoops. There we go. Whoops. Go ahead. You got it taken care of. So, and we've been talking, man. We could talk for another hour, but I'm going to let you go because of we've almost been doing this for 2 hours, Bethany. So
yeah, it goes quick.
Goes
but yeah,
quick.
I mean, if you're interested in French ring sport, try to find a club. If you want to get a hold of me, usually texting is the easiest. I don't know if I should give my number on YouTube, but you can find it online. Just search PhDogs, you can get a hold of me.
Yeah, I'll send up a link to your website.
Email, I try to be good about doing my emails. You can send me an email. Our club is one of the few actual clubs. Hold on, this guy's 13 years old, so he can't hear me if I were to tell him to be quiet.
Oh, you're good. And I tell people, like, when we're doing a dog podcast, that if you can't stand a barking dog, then I don't know what to tell you. My dogs sometimes lose their mind while I'm on these podcasts, but part of dog ownership, man. And even as professionals, we deal with the same crap that our clients do, with our barking dogs and with dogs being naughty, being on the tables, getting into crap. And so here's PhDogs. I put up a link to your website down below. And look at those beautiful dogs.
Yeah, my friend Karen did my website. But like I said, our club is a real club. People don't pay for training. If you want to be in our club, that means that you're helping set up. Some people will pay in Starbucks or donuts, things like that. We'll take turns going out to lunch after, taking turns paying. But we have a real club, which means that we're also kind of particular about who trains with us, because this is not our source of income. This is something that we do for fun on the side. And so if people aren't contributing or they're not really wanting to learn, then it's better, you can pay for privates and we're happy to teach you. But if you want to be part of our club, you have to contribute because it's a real club.
Well, and I think that's more of the attitude that they have in Europe as well, right? Because it's like everybody kind of puts in the effort to clean the field, make sure everything's good.
Yeah. And the nice thing about in France is each city has like a dog training field. Huh. So that's where like your French ring training would happen, your basic obedience classes would happen. The police dogs use the field, the agility people use the field. Everybody, there's like just a city dog training club basically, and everybody pays maybe 40 euros a year and everybody gets to use the field. We just don't have that here. It's more business dog trainers,
Yeah.
Well, and other different
clubs.
Culture.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, it's a more independent, I don't know, kind of rebel mindset or whatever. So we have Puerto Rico, Caribbean dog sport, Connecticut, Washington, and then Kingston, which that's where I'm at, which is Kingston's an island. So you'd have to go to take a ferry if you were up here in Washington. Colorado looks like, California looks like probably the most popular state. You guys look like you got the most clubs there. Even Texas, I mean, only has 3 ring sport clubs. And then with ring sport, one important thing that is it only mouths? Is it only what's the breed? And they have to be
No, it's all. I
papered
mean,
or
in
anything?
the U.S. they have to. All breeds are accepted. In France, they do have a list of dogs that are not allowed to bite.
Okay.
They also have different categories. Like if you have certain dogs are rated as different categories. So like you have to have a permit to have a pit bull. They have to wear a muzzle out in public. You have to have a permit to have a Rottweiler. Certain things like that. They have just different rules. Here, I mean, my now he's 11 Australian cattle dog. He has his brevet.
I
So I've
bet he does.
trialed. I've titled my cattle dog. I did a German Shepherd. I've done Turves. I've done Malinois. So I've trained a bunch of different breeds. My husband
Cool.
has done Malinois and Turves. In our old club, we had Beauceron, we had bulldogs, Alapaha blue-blooded bulldogs. I had my cattle dog. We had a Rottweiler, and we had a Doberman. So we had all kinds of different dogs.
Mishmash.
You don't have to have papers. You can get a blue book.
Okay.
That's the same if the dog only has one testicle. You can get a blue book, or no
Okay.
testicles if they're neutered. And you can still compete. You just can't win because it's again supposed to be kind of a breed test. So you can't win if the dog cannot reproduce.
And so you would just compete. You wouldn't be titled though,
No, you
or
can
would you?
title. Yeah, you
Okay,
just can't actually win. So
win the
like if
actual
you
first prize, like
correct,
you.
and
Okay,
that's only for nationals, because again it's supposed to be I think regionals as well, but because it's supposed to be a breed test, that's why they have that rule.
fascinating.
But you could still win. I mean, and most of the time if you're going to win, they're going to give you whoever won is going to go here. This is yours, and give you the first place. But you can't technically win.
Well, and I forgot to put up a ringsport.org, you guys. Here's the club list, and then let me put that in the comments while we're chatting it up. And oh, there it is. I just need to push the send. Why is
I
it
think
mostly male dogs? Somebody wants to know before we go.
because females love to go into heat right before competitions. I think that's no matter what competition you're going to do with dogs, females tend to go into heat right as you're starting to travel.
Yep.
And if you can still, so if you have a female that's in heat, you can still compete. You just go at the very end. So if you've got a 2-day full trial, you're not going until Sunday afternoon as the last dog,
Makes
which
sense.
which can be hard because now your dog's been hearing the bite work for the last 2 days. They've been getting themselves all worked up, and then they're going at the end. It's also really hard because the decoys are potentially going from just doing a whole bunch of ring threes to now doing a level 1 if that's what you're competing at. So that can be hard for them to maintain that same level of work that they just did for all the other ring 1 dogs because they just went ring 2, ring 3, and now they have to go back to level 1 work, and that can be difficult for them to switch. I think there's a lot of really nice females out there, but I think in general, females tend to be a little bit more sensitive. Their hormones can be a number. They can either be tougher, they can be more aggressive when they're in heat, they can be more sensitive when they're in heat. Also, if you have a female and you plan on breeding them, taking the time off from the breeding, getting them back into working shape, titling them, that can be hard as well.
Number of factors. I remember talking with Bart Bellin about why he only chose male dogs, and he essentially said that the female will change if they're in heat, and that he wants a consistent dog that he's working with. So that's what you were talking about with the hormones being introduced. Some are more sensitive, some are tougher, but we want to have something consistent.
And
PhDogs.
if you have a kennel full of dogs as well, that one female that's going into heat is going to throw all your boys off too, which is perfect for training. I will on purpose walk around my female that's in heat
Me
all over
too.
my training field before I'll bring out the boys because you don't know, they're not supposed to go on the field until at the very end, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be walking around the potty areas. The boys can't smell a female in heat that's parked a couple cars away. So I train it. I don't wait for problems.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong driving desire for procreation with those dogs, man. I've seen a dog dig through a wall to get to a female, and I've seen dogs connect through kennels. Like there's like
I
the
always tell people two doors, two
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 doors.
things because they're gonna find a way. And then boy dogs don't eat sometimes when the female's in heat, and they can
I
get
never
all
do.
yeah,
Yep.
it can turn
And they
into
get
a mess.
barky and whiny and
Yep.
just I'm like, dude, you're out in freaking you're incarcerated for the next 2 days at
Yeah.
least, dude, until she
And
starts to
the ones that
come out
are
of bed.
experienced are usually less annoying because they know the dog's not ready yet. It's the ones
Yeah.
that don't know what they're doing that get way too excited way too soon for no reason. They get all stressed out and it lasts forever and it's annoying.
Poor
But
guys.
yeah, I mean, some
Poor
people do really well with females. It's just not. I have females that I titled my female Turb to Ring 1. So I did have titled females. I had a female German Shepherd that we imported as an adult that played at Ring 3 that I handled her. She was already Ring 3, but I handled her at Ring 3 several times. So the females can definitely do the work. They just, I would say you have to be a better trainer and you need a good dog.
There's a lot of factors to consider with the female. Same in the human world too. Just
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, with the horses, right? Most people have geldings. They don't want a mare.
yeah.
If you put in the work, a good mare is usually better than a good gelding, but it's more work.
Yep. But it's worth it. Bethany, thank you. You guys check her out,
You're very welcome.
PhDogs. I enjoyed our conversation, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody here. You guys support me on
Thanks for
Patreon
joining.
if you like these. Yeah, thank you for joining. And you stay there, Bethany. I'll say goodbye to you in the studio. Okay.
Okay, sounds
Bye,
good.
everybody.